Okay. Hey guys, today we're going to be interviewing one of the best Enneagram coaches out there. She is one of the people I send most of the people who are looking for the Enneagram to her. And today we're going to be figuring out her journey. Like, how did she get into Enneagram? What does she see for the future Enneagram? What are some of the misconceptions she thinks about Enneagram? And we'll be getting all of that. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Klee on Discord, but Kaylee in my everyday life. And yeah, so Mercer knows me because a friend recommended me to him, and yeah, he's honestly deserves his money back because of how many people he's gotten to come to me. So yeah, he's great.
So, how did you get into Enneagram?
I got into Enneagram Christmas of 2012. One of my cousins, who I always like really looked up to, brought the big blue book, The Wisdom of the Enneagram, and a lot of people might be familiar with that by Riso Hudson. And that was my introduction to Enneagram. She was like, "You're a 4," and I was like, "Don't just tell me what I am." And so I was reading it, and I don't use that author anymore. So as I was reading The Four by that author,
Mhm.
I was like, oh my God, it's like somebody like took my subconscious narrative I've had my whole life and like things
Mhm.
I've always been doing, but weren't totally like conscious of. And then they wrote it down and it felt so personal. I was like, this is stuff I didn't even fully realize, but it's so real. Like, this is exactly what I'm doing and how I'm feeling. And like, how did I not know this? It was mind blowing, honestly. So I was hooked. I bought my own books. Tri Type started to get really popular. So then I got into like Catherine Chestnut, and that same cousin, she would, she knew more than I did at the time. So she was like, "You're a 478." And I was like, okay. And so I would look into that and, start typing my friends in college. And then, yeah, I used a lot of like Chestnut at the time and Catherine Faber, which I don't use any of those authors anymore. So it's kind of funny. It was a good foundation, I guess. But then I branched out to like um, Reddit and Discord after I had taken a step back from the Enneagram. I came back and I branched out to more like communities. And that was when I was opened up to Naranjo and Akazo and Enneagrammer and like a lot of the authors that I rely more on now.
Mhm.
Um, and it revealed to me that I was mistyped. So that was a fun journey for me that I had in
Mhm.
the last few years. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I typed a lot of ENTPs fours, and the reason why I typed them four is because of their instability with their emotions. A lot of times,
Yeah.
right? That FI trickster acts up, like like sometimes they're like kind of they can be depressive sometimes. So I've actually mistyped a lot of ENTPs that way when they're actually seven. So, but I
Yeah.
used Beatrice Chestnut, so I could see. Yeah.
With chestnut subtypes, that was what I was using at the time, which I don't like chestnut anymore. But with her subtypes, I was like, okay, well, I'm probably like the self-preservation or like the sexual four. Like I'm not like the sappy, sad four. I'm not a social
Mhm.
four, which
Social 4.
now that I understand the Enneagram in the way that I do now, I separate subtypes from type before I combine them. So it's like I'm obviously social dominant, and understanding types more triadically, I understand that I am not a core 4. But I will say TI is a really good identity function, just as much as FI can be.
Mhm.
And ENTPs can just as much be emotional, and it's more tumultuous because we don't understand it, and it's tripping us up, like you said, with the FI trickster. So I get it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I typed a lot of ENTPs for SP.
Yeah.
And the thing that I've had to learn is not to look at the subtypes as themselves, but you have to find the actual core type first. And I kind of learned that from you, and the
Yeah.
way that you were typing and stuff. You find the core type first and not look at the
Yeah.
subtype because it'll just lead to like way too many things. But no
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
tells you that, so you got to figure it out on your own. Unfortunately. Who are the authors you use mainly now, and why did you choose them?
Um, yeah, it is a mixture. So I would say I don't use Akazo necessarily for typing, but I do like Ikazo as the father of the Enneagram and understanding his perspective and how he came to the conclusion he did with the types, because he's the first one who solidified types.
Mm-hmm.
I use a bit of Enneagrammer, especially when it comes to things like instincts. Not My Type was a school that branched off of Enneagrammer that I like a bit more than them, actually, and they do some voltology type, I guess. When it comes to their typings, they do a bit of a flavor of voltology, and I do like that. Not necessarily voltology, but just like how you present yourself visually. And then yeah, in terms of just understanding, I would say Sally Valander is really underrated. I love his book. But yeah.
Okay, okay. So,
Maitre. I always forget Sandra Maitre. Sorry, she's mother. Anyway, continue.
can you share any transformation experiences you've had since using Enneagram?
Yeah. I think when I first got into it, it was really good for understanding. Even though I was typing as a 4, that's why I don't even really. I don't get mad at people whenever they mistype themselves if it's helping them in some way. Then it's a good tool. I do have a 4 in my tri-type, so it was helping me in terms of like understanding my own push-pull dynamics. And also a big thing that I do sometimes is I will like my identity seems to be tied to this past version of myself that I will revisit constantly. And that's the most true version of me. And that Riso Hudson talks about that a lot in their book. And so that was something that I was like, oh, okay. And in combination with me being a 7 and frustratedly looking at the future, I was never really in the present. So that was something, just learning presence is like it's like a big focus of all the types, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. Um. Okay. So, what do you think are some of the misconceptions that people have with Enneagram?
Just depends on how you're coming at it, I guess. Some people, this probably isn't your crowd necessarily, but there are a lot of like people who have gotten into it from business or churches, like, because I know churches really love it and businesses sometimes like it, and kind of see it as like these are your like a strengths test,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like this is how you can work together as a team. But really it is like it does have its like spiritual roots, and it is more about like looking inward and kind of the parts of yourself you don't really want to look at. So when people gloss over it a little too much, it's a little bit missing the point. And then coming from the other side, um, the kids who come from a personality database, I think that they just parrot each other, and they come from the land of subtypes only. And so there's really not a foundational understanding of what is each type doing. Like why is a 7 a 7, not just why is a social 7, like what does a social 7 look like in terms of a caricature? Like
Mm-hmm.
why are they doing that? What does it look like? Why, how did the types come to form in terms of starting with the instincts? So yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of them, the people on personality database, they're looking more at correlations. Like, what did
Yeah.
somebody else correlate to this type, right? And
Yeah.
that kind of like, leads people like, oh, well, this person can't be this, it can't have that, it can't be that, it can't be this,
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's always, but that's like personality
Yeah,
database
I
for
hate that.
you.
Yeah. I hate that. It doesn't really allow you to independently, like, to really freely and independently think about what, like, if you're seeing a person who's like an SLE, for example. I just typed this girl who's an SLE, and I
Hmm.
said, well, you don't not look like an 8, but you are giving me far more qualities of a different type that you are 8. So I'm going to have to really review your footage, because I'm not going to automatically put you in the 8 box just because you're an SE lead.
Hmm.
Because they're different. They're measuring different things. And yeah, I would rather be open to being proven wrong and
Hmm.
critically think about each step of the process than just make assumptions. So
Did you already type her as SLE or did somebody else?
somebody else had, and then honestly, during the session, I asked her, I was like, what is your like Jungian type, whatever system you go by? And she was like SLE. And I was like, that makes sense. I can
Oh,
see
it
it.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. Sometimes I always like, I question people when they say, who typed them. I'm like, yo,
yeah.
because so many people like kind of, like I, like I'll say like when it comes to like MBTI and stuff like that, I don't think people can really like find someone that's better than me. So like when
Mhm.
somebody says something, I'm just like, I don't think you're that type, like immediately
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
you're a T user and you're saying that you're a TI user and you're just saying everything regurgitated from someone else and referencing them
Oh.
like you are a TE user. I'm so
Yeah, yeah.
sorry. It's like sorry to hurt you.
Interesting, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Huh.
yeah. So you're
I don't know,
super.
she did seem like a censor. She was very in her own body, and she
Mhm.
did have low ethics. I will say that she most likely had low ethics, so one of
Mhm.
those types, but
SLE is an interesting one
yeah.
for. I mean, I'm not the best at sociology. I got like my
I don't
group's been kind of
either.
shoving it up my ass here and
Yeah, I
there. But they kind of seem to be like a mixture between like ESTP and ENTJ a lot of
I
times.
agree. I agree. Yeah, that would be the other consideration, I guess, for her, but yeah.
Just
Yeah,
like ESTP or whatever.
yeah.
So what have you correlated yourself with Enneagram? I mean, you've done a lot, right? I mean, you said in one video you did like 150 sessions at this point, or even more than that.
No, I'd say probably it's hard to keep track actually because I at one point in like April, I believe, I was doing like 3 a day for a few weeks, and it was a lot. And so I'm trying to do the math and because I didn't keep a record of all of those early ones. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I have in my records, I have almost 100, but I know there were more before I ever kept records. So I don't know. But
Okay, that's awesome.
um, yeah. One of my correlations between the systems that I found.
Yeah, yeah. What have you found? I don't care about like what other people have correlated. What have you found?
I don't always ask them what their a Jungian type is. So I just really I hone in on the Enneagram. The one thing I will say, like just misconceptions, I guess. I type a lot of INFP nines, like a lot of INFP
I
nines.
said that
A
shit, and
lot.
they're
Yeah.
like, oh, nines can't be intuitive. Like nines
No,
can't
they're
be intuitive.
really, really often like a
Me too.
nine wing one that like especially nine wing one. Like they're almost always nine wing one.
Nine wing
So
one, yeah, because
yeah,
they care about
yeah,
the morals. The morals is going to
yeah.
be attached to one.
Super fantastical thinking, like very just kind of yeah, and they have the SI child, so they like that, and they're very it's a very whimsical type, nine wing one. Like it's very with like the idealism of the frustration one, and then like the kind of getting lost in the withdrawn world of the nine, like it's very common.
And they
So
hate to express their anger. They really,
yeah.
really.
And the SE polar, they hate anger. It's very, very common. Yeah.
So I'm like, yo, nine makes the most sense for INFPs. I've
Honestly.
thought that, but people are
Yeah.
just like, oh, that has to be. I think ISFJ is what they correlated
Yeah, it
um
happens.
to nine. I'm like, I could see nine. Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
one I could see. I can
Yeah.
also see like a six SP
Yeah,
with
for sure.
those. But what have you seen? Like what have you seen for ones?
For ones, I've so nobody who has come to me unsure of their type has ever been typed as a one. I have friends on Discord who type as a one, and one of them, Tiny Line, I adore. Um, she was like, I just want to be sure about my instincts. And
Mhm.
so I've typed her. Um, Another one, she's sure of her type, but she just wants to give me data about ones and see if
Mhm.
if I agree with her typing. So in terms of ones, the only two that I've typed that are core ones have been ESTJ. So
Yeah, I mean, I was
pretty
gonna say that
typical.
I,
Yeah.
I think it's hard to get an STJ in this space a lot of times. It's
Yeah.
just not because whether it's MBTI or Enneagram, that's an abstract space, and people don't
Yeah.
realize that. Like you're
Yeah.
not gonna be getting, a lot of like concrete, especially
Yeah.
SJs because they're out doing like
Yeah.
stabilizing shit
Yeah.
to actually be interested in something like this, unless it's like a work thing or something like that, then they'll do it.
Mhm.
But to be in a like an abstract space, like a realm, like on a
Mhm.
Discord, it's gonna be not as likely. I usually say ones are STJs usually. They got
Ones
that.
are not as common. Like statistically, I think that they're not as common. But yeah, my aunt is a one, and I really just wanted footage of her.
Mhm.
One's interview so weird. They're so weird because my aunt, she's very frustrated and angry, and she's very like perfectionistic and controlling, and everything has to be a certain way. And she's not very timid, and like she's not like. But then I record her, and she's like, "Hello, my name is Cinda. and she's so like focused on being perfect. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just crazy. And she hated it too. She started off the video by saying, I hate this. And because she just had to get it out of her body, the frustration and the anger. But she didn't want to do something where she felt like there wasn't a right answer. That was what she told me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I kinda people like I kinda have my own little thing to differentiate between ESTJ and ENTJ. The
Mhm.
big thing is that ENTJs will try to put on a powerful mask, right? They wanna look powerful, they wanna look strong, whilst
Mhm.
ESTJs wanna look perfect. They wanna look
Yeah.
perfect, like, that's
Yeah.
like valedictorian,
Yeah.
got everything together, and they're the
Yeah.
perfect human being, like, I think about like Barack Obama, like Tom Brady. These are like perfect people. Like people were like, oh my God, this person can do nothing wrong.
They're very
Um,
clean.
very
Very clean.
clean, very
Yeah.
pristine. Kind of have
Mhm.
an elitist to them, like
Mhm.
elitist type of
Yeah.
thing to them.
Yeah.
If
Notice that.
that's like what I use, like I'll tell people like if you're struggling between
Mhm.
somebody ESTJ or ENTJ, it's like are they like trying to look powerful? Because
Mm.
ENTJs are gonna overdo the SE child, even though it's
Mhm.
not that great.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. That's true.
so what have you seen for twos? I'm interested in
For there's no twos on Discord. What are you talking about?
that.
There. They don't get on Discord. They're with people. Like actually with people. They're not here. I've interviewed two twos. So I guess it's about the same as ones maybe, but one of them deleted their account, so I can't find her.
Mhm.
The other one of them is it doesn't isn't really sold on being a two, and I get it. So I would like to re-interview him now that I do have more data. But then the other one I invited because he runs his own typology business and he never uses Discord. So those are the only three twos I know of on Discord right now.
Oh wow. What
Yeah.
types do you usually do you think correlate with two?
ENFJ is common. And what was that one girl? I don't really know what that other girl who deleted her account was. I'm not sure. She was a little more gentle than I think an ENFJ would be. She could have been an E. I don't know. She came
ESFJ?
off. I don't know. Maybe. But there's another guy that I think could be a two, and I'm about to interview him. We'll see. But he's largely typed as either an IEE or an IEI. So we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ENFJ
Sometimes an
and
IEE, sometimes an IEE will type themselves as a two, and it's not uncommon for an IEE to just be in the image center in general, like anywhere in the image center. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. What
yeah,
about threes?
that's a lot. So the 3, 6, and 9, I think, are easiest to be any type for the most part. More so a 9, I think, could be like literally any type. I don't know if there's any type I would say can't be a 9. 6 6, I would say you get more like, oh, that would be weird, 3 a little more so even, but for the most part, 3, 6, and 9 are like have the most diversity. I do type a lot of like NTs as threes though,
Hmm.
and that's really common, just NTs in general. Uh, more likely extroverts, obviously, but and then what else? Every once in a while, there could be an IEE or an IENF. I'm so used to using the socionics language now. It's
Hmm.
it's the people I hang out with in Discord, unfortunately, are the toxic socionics people. But
IEE, ENFP, right?
ENFP, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think what they couldn't be necessarily. I don't see. I don't think I would necessarily see like an. It'd be more rare to see like an ISFP or like an INFP, things
Hmm.
like that, like the less assertive
Hmm.
Myers-Briggs type because they're assertive as a type.
Yeah.
So
Sort of
yeah,
as a type.
INTP, yeah, things like that. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
what about four? That's gonna be the most interesting. That's the one I'm most interested in. Fours.
yeah. So in terms of the fours, I've personally typed one's an IEI. He's fun. One is an ISFP, and then oh, Wait, I stand corrected. I did type. There was a weird one. There was a really weird one. Okay. There was this girl who was an INFP. She was like, I sent her video actually to typists because I wanted to be
Mhm,
sure about her. She was weird.
mhm,
And it was like pretty clear to a lot of people she was an INFP, but she was speaking all of the four language. But then the thing is when you look at her visuals, she is very perfect looking. She's very competent. Like there's no image presentation of frustration or even withdrawn, honestly. It was so weird. And so because I interviewed her over voice and then I got her video.
mhm.
And so I was like, I need to rethink this. She ended up being a 3-wing 4 with a 1 fix.
Three
And
and four.
yes, which they can be more withdrawn than you would expect. But yeah, she was a weird one, actually. She's very idealistic, which isn't uncommon for 3-wing 4. You know that.
Mhm,
I mean, you're pretty
mhm.
idealistic yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was interesting.
But so for fours, you got what, ISFP, INFJ, and
Yeah, and then I'd say INFP, sometimes INFP, they're more likely nines in my case, but yeah,
mhm, yeah,
they're fours as well. Yeah. I'd say INFPs are likely 4, 6, 9. Um, in that tri-type almost always, to be honest. They almost always have that tri-type at least. Just that one girl was weird.
yeah. I've noticed the sexual fours are nuts. Like
Yeah.
those ISFPs, whoosh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whoo.
Yeah, the weirdest I will tell you the weirdest type I interviewed because attachment types are more common, I believe. How much more common they are is kind of up for debate, but I do believe they're at least somewhat more common, and it's natural. But then the more you get into numbers like 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, the weirder, the less common, less likely someone is that type. This guy is the only 4-wing 5 I've ever typed, and he was sexual social, so he was also sexual dominant, which is weird. And I
Mhm,
typed him 478, and which is like any other Enneagram typist who like kind of follows some of this like the teachers that I follow will be like, yeah, I'd need to see that to believe it. But I'm telling you, this guy was like, he was just definitely like he described himself as like an iconoclast, just like the whole time he was just like, I hate decadence. It's such a false masturbation of what you could become, and I like to pour my whole being into my art and my spirituality. And he was just very like, just kind of like that frustrated, dark intellectualism. Yeah.
mhm. They get scary. Four sexual, like who, like I've had a ISFP who was a four sexual, just like yelling at me, just like
Really?
you don't understand me, all this other shit. And I'm just like, bro, I just need to get out of this situation because this
Mm-hmm.
woman is so angry and volatile that she might do anything. And I'm like,
That's funny. That's
what was that?
funny. That's funny. I kind of love as a frustration type. I love it. I love frustration types. I love whenever they're like, you don't get it, and I'm like, that's really funny. Please help me get it though. Like I
No,
love
no, no.
you're like a little brat.
I feel like you say anything and they're gonna get upset about it. So it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
even if you try to figure out a four, they don't want you to figure them out. So it's just like
Yeah.
better just,
I
like leave them
respect
the
it.
fuck alone.
With my 4 fix and frustration core, I'm like, you're such a little brat. Like I get it. If
I'm just
you
like,
yeah. It's funny. I like them.
yeah. So what do you think about fives in general?
Yeah, I mean, I've typed them like
A lot.
I'm just
Gotta be a lot of them.
um no, on Discord, it's always a hard conversation to tell someone they're a 6-wing 5 and not a 5 because it happens a really often.
Yeah, I've done that, and they get so butthurt. They're like, I'm like, yo,
Yeah,
you're a six, not a
yeah.
five.
Or
You're
they're a
six.
9. That's common too. They're either that. But no, there's more 5s on Discord than I think there are in just going down the street, on a normal
Mhm,
day. There's not going to be nearly as many 5s as you find on Discord. So
mhm,
it's a good place to understand 5s more than I ever expected. So it's a weird type in my opinion because we're both head center types, but they're doing something that's completely the opposite of me as a 7.
Mm-hmm.
because frustration and rejection are like opposites. So we have opposite responses to how we go about not having our needs met, I guess. Whereas the frustration types remain sensitive and picky and like, well, okay, it's going to happen anyway. So I'm just going to like, I have my vision and it's not changing. Rejection types just completely reject all of it. They're like, yeah, it's not going to work out. So then I don't need it. I'm going to find things for myself and develop them for myself. And it's almost like they numb themselves to the part of them that had the unmet need and then decide to fill that need themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting.
What types do you usually find for fives?
INTP, ISTP. But this is like what's common on Discord. I could imagine maybe an STJ, like an ISTJ. I don't know. I'm trying to think INTJ. Yeah, that one as well. INTJ. Yeah. For the most part.
Usually, like if it's an INTP, they're almost always a 5. Like I don't know what it is. They're big on, it's either 5 or 9 with them. Sometimes you'll get some of the 9s with an INTP, but a lot of times it's a 5 SP for some reason.
Yes, you will also get the 9 with the INTP. Yes,
weird.
Come across many of those. Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
What about 6s? Is that
so many things? I will say okay, maybe the most common, it just depends. Like if you're looking at, I've seen INTP 6s as well, actually. And they tend to have more emphasis on their SI. And so I've seen that. And then I've seen just about everything. ESFJ. I've seen ENFJ. I've seen
ENFJ?
Yeah, it's not I don't think it's as common as an image type for them. And then I've seen ISFP, unfortunately.
Which 6 would that be? What, a 6 sexual?
An ISFP?
Yeah, ISFP. Would it be 6 sexual? Which one would they be?
Probably. I'm trying to remember the ones I've even done an ISTP as well, and they were a self-preservation sexual. And then in the ISFP, I think maybe sexual or were they social blind? I was I'm trying to remember. But yeah. So, but no, I have definitely seen the 6 ISFP. They tend to be like kind of the I don't think they're usually social, actually. They tend to be like, and this isn't like chestnut subtypes, but they tend to be like a social justice warrior kind of type, and very focused on like, well, that's not right. And morality, and like kind of they get tripped up by just kind of causing confusion for themselves, I would say, a little bit. Like, oh my God, there's so many options. I don't know what to do in life. And then they start to spiral, and it's like the any polar plus the 6 thing. And it's, yeah, I see that. So, yeah.
Right. What about 7s?
7s, lots of any DOMs, lots of some ENTJs. I typed in ESFP, so there was
the ESFP.
Yeah, but he might not be an ESFP though. That's how he types himself. So he types himself as
well, obviously, he probably ENFP.
I definitely think he was probably TI polar, but like
ENFP probably.
Yeah. Who knows? But no, I mean, but like with like a 7 wing 8, I would say like you can be SE dominant is more common. And then let's see what else. Extroverts mostly. Yeah.
What about the big 8? The big 8. Everyone talks about the 8.
8s. That's another one I've typed fewer of. The ones I've typed in 8 have always been ESTP or ENTJ. Those are the only 8s I've typed. So I know that because there's only been a few, but yeah.
Yeah, some people say the ESFP is an 8. The 8 wing 7.
They can be an 8, but I mean, like, they can also. I think when it comes to the attachment types, they can be the attachment types as well. That's just my stance on it. It's like, yeah, if they're going to be a hexad type, they're probably going to be an 8 or even a 7-wing 8, something with an 8 in it. And then other than that, I think they can be an attachment type, to be honest. So yeah, it's just not maybe as common, but yeah. And then I don't know. It's not even that it's as common. It's like, wait, what types do you think are most common in Myers-Briggs?
Most common in Myers-Briggs, I would say, are your STJs.
STJs. Okay.
STJs.
Okay. Well, and I don't think we have a million ones running around, though. That's the thing. Because if they only correlate to ones, I don't think ones are like the most common Enneagram type.
Yeah, I don't think they're the most common online. I think if you like were to poll people, you see a lot more ones in general. If you were to like take 100 people, like random people, I think you'd see more ones because
I don't
you'd
think
see
you'd
more.
see.
I think you see more
Well,
ones and twos. More ones and twos.
than online, yes, but compared to the other types, no. I would think you would see less ones compared to the other types for the like ones, 8s, and 5s. You would see less of compared to every other type.
Ones, eights,
Um,
and fives.
yeah. But yeah, if you were to poll people in real life, I think. But yeah, and like I was saying, though, like is ESFP like a rare type? I don't think it is.
I think if I had to say like my thoughts, probably about 7 to 8% of people are ESFP.
Okay. So
Uh,
then of those 7 to 8, I mean, it's not incredibly common. So
mhm.
it's not like you're going to like necessarily rarely see an ESFP that's like an attachment type. It's just that maybe they're not as common of a type in general. So that's why they're not like when I say, oh, who's a 3, 6, and a 9, I'm not saying ESFP because you just don't see it as commonly in
Yeah.
general.
I mean, they're just, a lot of, very impulse driven.
Yeah.
So a lot
Yeah.
of people correlate them with 8 because 8 is supposed to
Mhm.
be high SE.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
that's just is what
Yeah.
it
They
is.
can definitely be 8s for sure. For sure. Yeah.
I can see some of the crazy ones being that way. Like, I don't know if you know who Cardi B is.
Yes. Yeah,
I
like,
think
that's, like yes.
I think
That's a good
she's
example.
probably an 8, wing 7. She doesn't really
Probably.
think about her consequences or anything. Like she just
No.
fucking just moves.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
that
I
that
swear I dated, an ESFP who was, he's either a 6 or a 9, so he was one of the attachment ones, but yeah, but
that's
that's just
crazy.
fine.
How did
But it's
that
also like what?
how did that work for an ENTP,
E For me dating an ESFP?
a TI blind, or what you would say?
Also any, like, demon or whatever.
Yeah. How does that work?
It was a lot of fun. So we dated actually twice. So we dated the first time after like we didn't know each other. He just asked for my number. We went on some dates and like I don't know. I was like, well, whatever. We'll see what happens. And we could not communicate for shit. We was just like right past each other. Then we became friends for like 2 years. We kind of got used to each other and like learned how to speak the other person's language is what I would say.
Hmm.
And having similar enough Enneagram types, I think helped. But like we dated a second time and it was really fun. I will say it was a lot of fun, but it was frustrating as well because I would try to explain something to him that was in any way conceptual. And he's just like, I don't know what you're saying, like most of the time when you talk. And I was like, he was like, can you give me an example? And I was like, I don't think I can.
He's asking for an SE example.
And he was like,
No,
yeah, and he was just very paranoid about doing the right thing. And I was like, that doesn't matter. Just like
really?
I don't like well, I just couldn't even comprehend that. I was like, why are you so worried about doing the right thing and like his future? And I was like, it's like it was this weird combination of like, obviously like the sensory presence, but then like this paranoia about the
The
ultimate
future.
future.
NI inferior?
Yeah.
NI
What?
inferior. Well,
Yeah.
ESFPs have NI inferior, so they kind of worry about the future, but a lot of times it's created. People don't really see it, but like your hero function creates the inferior function. Like your worry is created from your hero function. Like let's say for an ENTP, they're like, oh, um, they want to be comfortable and things of that nature, but they're never comfortable because they're always chasing new experiences, right? So they
Mhm.
create these SI scars by just chasing possibilities. And then
Yep.
like, they're kind of like banged up, or like they can't like keep a consistent schedule. And it's not that they can't keep a consistent schedule, it's just they just chasing extroverted intuition.
Mhm.
And like,
That's good.
that's the downsides of chasing extroverted intuition. It's like the downsides of being in the moment. If you're always in the moment, then you can't care about what's gonna happen tomorrow.
Yeah. And definitely it creates the paranoia about that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then it combined with like, I guess, with the FI ethics of like wanting to do the right thing. Because a lot of his actions seemed to me a little insincere because it was just him wanting to be the good boyfriend, wanting to do the right thing because he was paranoid about like his future and like, is this even like, am I going to marry this girl? And I'm like, bro, chill. Like, you don't have to know that right now. Like, but then like, yeah, it was just weird, but it was a lot of fun. It was the funnest relationship I had. And it was probably, he like respected me the most of anybody. Like, not that I've had
Really?
like horrible experiences, but he was the most respectful person I've ever dated. Great.
Really? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I think you guys bonding over Essie and Any, like the two
Yeah.
together, just like chaos machines.
Oh yeah, we
Like,
were. We were. It was so
chaos
funny.
fucking machine.
When we would hang out with our friends, like we were just a mess because we just had similar energy, but we took it in like different directions, kind of, you know? So it was just, it
Yeah.
was chaos. We were totally fine with like just bullshit, you know? We were just like, let's just create this fake scenario and run with it and then trap somebody else in it and then just troll them.
Yeah. Like ENTPs, man, I always find myself like managing them. I don't know what it is. It's because like
Yeah,
it's so much chaos. It's like I gotta manage this chaos before it spews over here, and then like
yeah.
I gotta clean up an even bigger pile. So like
Yeah,
me and
yeah.
my friend, he's an ENTP, he's a SP7, and
Mhm.
like I'm always like managing anything that he fucks up. And I'm like,
That's
yo,
funny.
you like you like the unlimited what can go wrong will go wrong, and it's like
Yeah,
I gotta clean it up. It's like
that's funny.
being the control type here. I'm like, yo, I gotta clean this shit up. Like, yo, you can't be doing this.
I love TE. I love TE DOMs actually. They're like some of my favorite people. My dad's an ENTJ. One of my really good friends is an ESTJ because
Mhm.
I feel like it's just it does feel like an automatic security blanket. I'm just like bloop, bloop,
Yeah,
bloop, bloop, and they'll just clean it up. So
yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we are talking about it on Discord, and they're like, bro, you gotta stop cleaning up his mess. I'm like, yo, if I don't clean up his mess, it gets even bigger, and then I
Were
gotta
we
clean up. And then I gotta clean up an even bigger mess. So it's like I might as well clean it up immediately. And
yeah,
then
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, but we're used to it. We're used to our mess where it's not like we're gonna die. Like we've been living
Well,
this way
ENTPs,
our
I
whole
don't know, man. The
life.
ENTPs
So
are always like one innie away from dying. I don't know. They
one
come back
any away. That's
one
funny.
innie fucking away, man, chasing some crazy possibility.
Yeah, that's funny.
Just like the boredom with an ENTP, like they fucking hate boredom. Oh my god, they're just like always doing something.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Like I
true.
don't like I think you got something you're spinning over there, and it's like whenever I'm like interviewing like C.S. Joseph, he's always like spinning his fucking knife. And then you're
Yeah,
giving
yeah.
me that same feeling that you're doing right now. I don't know what you're doing over there.
Oh, I am. I'm playing with this
I
thingy.
knew it. There's something.
Right?
Yep. See,
So
like fucking gotta be doing something. Like
yeah, I've been
IMDb's
playing with this
always
thingy. It feels really nice. I like, see, that's the thing with like SI though, is like, it's like my friends are like the socionics idiots were like, they're just like, well, the difference with SI and SE is like, you don't like the fact, it's not about the big putting an impact on something like physically, like, oh, I'm gonna like
mhm,
do this demonstrative thing. It's how the thing makes you feel when you're
feel.
doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I like how this feels on my finger. It's not about
Mhm.
me making an impact on this thing and actually like enforcing my force onto it or whatever. It's like, it feels nice. And it's stimulating my any brain.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I
Yeah.
was thinking it's more of an anything, like to
Like
keep your
it's
brain
stimulating.
going
But it's
because you
not a
need
dichotomy.
multiple sources. I think like you
Yeah.
just need multiple sources and not just one.
Yeah.
Like that motherfucker's always spinning his fucking knife and shit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this bitch.
Yeah.
But
That's
like you
fair.
just gotta accept that's just who they are, you know.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the future for Enneagram?
Oh, I think with the new, well, yeah, with the new schools that are taking off, Enneagrammer is, it's as though it's controversial, it is gaining some traction, I would guess. But then there's schools coming off of it, um, that are also focused more on how do we observe the types.
Mhm.
So, and I honestly, like, as much as I don't rely on Naranjo, I do respect him because other, like, rather than Chestnut, he like actually took real people that he interviewed and saw patterns, and it's like definitely based on data, even though he uses different psychology underpinning all of it. So I can't really use him because like he would consider me as a social 7, I think, as a withdrawn or a compliant type, or like he uses different triads than I would ever use. So
Mhm.
it's not something I can practically use, not that much, but um that's what I think. We've already had like the esoteric spiritual roots that it was born from. And then it's been marketed to the masses. It's been studied in a theoretical way. We've done all these other things. And now it's like, okay, how do we know this is all real?
Mhm.
How can we actually use it? And what is the foundation? Okay, so obviously it has spiritual roots, and that's always going to be objectively what they are.
Mhm.
But then in terms of typing yourself, because of how much it's been marketed, people want to type themselves. There
Mhm.
is no objective standard to typing yourself. And I don't know if there ever
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
will be, but
Yeah.
there's going to be people who try to create that objective standard for typing yourself. And so I think that's probably what we're moving more into.
Yeah, I mean, because for us to find your MBTI, we kind of find like we use like a couple vectors, like
Mhm.
initiating versus responding. That would be like somebody like you would initiate a lot and change the topic a lot when you talk, and that's just like that's just an extroverted thing that
Yeah.
extroverts do. And then there's like process or progression versus
Mhm.
outcome, right?
Mhm.
A progression person is kind of like they really care about the journey. They're on a journey for life.
Mhm.
They like to look at the steps to get to one place to the next.
Yeah.
While like the outcome or control person, they like to try to control something, or like by marshaling resources or whatnot, or they'll just flat out like look at end products. Like
Yeah.
they just like ENTJs are focused on end products. Like what is the end product here? Like what's the outcome?
Yeah.
Is what they'll be looking at. Another one would be systematic versus interest, right?
Mhm.
Systematic people, they look at like, how can I install a system or structure in something to get more control over something?
Mhm.
So like an ENTP is a systematic type, even though I think they're the least systematic of all the types because any doesn't want to do the same thing twice, right?
No, but I
They
can see it.
they can create a system and then they'll just like give it to somebody else or something,
Yeah.
because they want to just keep on experimenting, and and like unwebbing like all the patterns of the world, right? Um, but
Yeah.
their mind thinks from a systematic point of view.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
TISI, I mean, we're good at creating systems. It's just
Yeah.
that will we really follow through with them?
No.
Not unless we're very healthy and developed, I would say.
Very,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
developed.
yeah. Because
Very.
I love creating systems. Most of them I don't follow, but there are some that I'm so proud of. It's like my child, I've like made this thing, and so I'm like,
Mhm.
even if it's like I could more quickly just like, or I don't feel like doing it. It's like, no, I made this thing. I'm gonna do it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But then that any pops in your head. What if I do it this way? Oh, abandon the system. Now it's gone.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely get curious, of course.
Yeah. As in
Yeah.
like being like an ENTJ, like I'm always streamlining the system. If I have a system, it's like it gets streamlined more and more and more and more. And I just stick
Mhm.
on it until I streamline it and refine it. But there's systematic types and then there's interest type, right? So the interest types look at like what do people get out of a situation, right? They're basically like you'll see like especially the FI interest, they'll be like, well, I'm not getting this out of this. And they'll just flat out tell you straight to your face, I'm not
Uh,
getting nothing out of this exchange.
okay. So like they're not understanding or what?
No, no, they are in it for their own interests.
Oh.
And when they're not getting something out of it,
Yeah.
they're gonna be upset, or they will just flat out tell you what they're getting out of the certain situation.
So any type that has SI in their first four in the stacking is like that?
No, no, no. That the interest types are the SPs and NFs.
Oh. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
What's the other dichotomy?
systematic is going to be your SJs and your NPs.
Oh. Okay, okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so that's okay. That's what complement or is the opposite of that. Yeah, definitely more systematic. That's interesting. Okay.
So you'll see, like, they will just flat out just tell you what they're getting out of a situation. And like
Yeah,
for me, it's kind of like appalling and shocking because I don't even think that way. And
right.
it kind of like makes me jerk back, like, what the fuck am I getting here? Like, make me, but they're just so bold with it. Like if
Yeah, like I
I
didn't
have
think that was the point. I'm sorry. Like this is not
like
catering this for you. Yeah.
for instance, like I have an ESFP friend and she will only call me when it's in her interest. Like
Yeah.
when she needs me to do something. Like, and
Yeah.
she's like just out in the front with it. Like, why I'm calling you. Like,
Yeah.
are you fucking kidding me?
That's funny.
Um, but then there's the NF interest, right? NF interest for them is about global interest, right? SPs is more about pragmatic interest, like what am I getting
Uh,
soon? Because
yeah.
they're not future focused, but the
Yeah.
NF are future focused, so they're like, what is in best for humans, right?
Mm,
You'll see that with INFJs, where they'll try to like cultivate the interest for all people. Um,
weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll see that that's another metric there. Have we went over all and informative versus direct, right? When someone's direct, they kind of use a lot of close-ended statements. It's
Mhm.
very easy to understand what they're saying, and they don't beat around the bush, right? And then there's an informative communication, which is your communication style, where they just talk. They don't like really tell people what to do. They over explain something. They give extra information. They can be
Yes.
passive, they can be indirect or open-ended questions or open-ended.
Open-ended questions are really fun though.
No, they're not.
No, they're not, he said.
No, they're not. It's like, what is, they'll ask you something, and sometimes you got to decode what they're saying. Like,
Sometimes I don't know I'm doing it though. People will be like, "You are not clear," and I'm like, "What do you mean?"
yeah,
I just like took you on this journey with my words, and I think that's
journey
just the way
progression. See, you see that, like your progression oriented.
yeah.
Yeah, so like when you like get used to it, you can find anyone's personality type. I hope Enneagram figures out some way, but I think most likely what will end up happening is Um, somebody will find actually good correlations that correlate with a lot of types.
I
But
mean,
the
the
problem is
Enneagram,
three,
the
six,
Enne
nines.
well, the Enneagram has not dichotomies, but triads. So
Mm-hmm.
we work on a system of 3.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 12 different triads. Um, and they're separated into groups of 4. Well, 3 types per triad, but then like there's Hornevian stance, harmonic group, center of intelligence, and attachment, or what am I trying to say? Object relation. Um, so within that, there's 3 different groupings and 3 different types fall into each group. And so me as a 7, I have 4 different triads, I guess I fit into. So I'm positive outlook, which is different from competency, which is different from reactivity. So positive outlook is like when things don't go your way, we reframe. We think, oh, okay, well, how is it? This is actually okay because I can figure something else. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're like, it's not actually my fault, or I don't actually want to take the blame. It's always something positive. Like we can always positively reframe something.
That's
Um,
hilarious. That's hilarious because I call that the any flip, right?
yeah, yeah.
I call it, like, in my group we call it any flip. Like any DOMs can always flip it to a positive if they look at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. When you have that creativity, and then the competency people, they separate their emotions from the problem when things don't go their way, and so they're thinking they're coming at it at a very competent place where they're not reacting negatively. They're not necessarily trying to just ignore the problem and find the positives. They're competency. They're removing themselves from it in a way, and then reactivity is responding, and when things don't go their way, they got to react to it, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
it negative a lot of times. So it's like for like an 8, it's like you're in my way. Okay, fuck you, move out of my way. So they're reactive in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But then as a 7, so I have my positive outlook. I have my um I could do frustration. So frustration is different from attachment and is different from rejection. Frustration types, like I said, are like trying to figure out how to make their ideal work, and they're not willing to adapt themselves. So attachment types are like, oh, how do my environment or whatever is being expected of me, I for survival, I mean, like most people are like, how do I adapt to this? That's very
Mm-hmm.
normal. Attachment and rejection just don't do that. Unfortunately, we're very rigid and kind of like as a 7, it's like, well, if I can't have my ideal, I'm going to die. So it's like, it's that or nothing. um, but, and then there's also center of intelligence. So I'm a head type, and that's
Mhm.
different from heart and gut. Head types are mapping. They're trying to figure out, like they have fear. And so in terms of like survival and trying to map what the world is like and what do I need to know,
Mhm.
uh, we're mapping in a specific way that is also influenced by the other triads. And then I mean, assertive type rather than withdrawn or compliant, which is just basically um, I have rejected the soft, nurturing object and said, no, I'm going to go for what I need. I'm going to kind of bypass like waiting for it or having it given to me, and I'm going to go after what I need assertively. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Oh yeah, I forgot. There's a pragmatic versus affiliative. So
Mm-hmm.
there's pragmatic types, and the pragmatic types are the SPs and the NTs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They think about autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
They take more of a the ends justify the means
Yeah.
approach to things, and the
Mm-hmm.
affiliative people are more about interdependence, cooperation,
Mm.
um, getting along, right? And that's gonna be your SJs and your NFs. So like you
Okay.
can kind of use these to like find someone's type based off like where they are.
Interesting.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's really, it's like a puzzle. You have to kind of stack the pieces to see where they overlap. That's kind of how I view the Enneagram in a lot of ways as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I when I got an Enneagram, I'm like, oh, this is easy because I grabbed Russo and I was like, oh, this shit's pretty easy. And then like I got somebody was like, oh, get Chestnut, and I read Chestnut. I'm like, there's 27 of these motherfuckers, like, and then they
Yeah.
were like, this is a counter to this, and this is a counter. And I'm like, what the fuck? You got to
Yeah.
know like all these counters because a counter 6 looks like a fucking 8, and then a counter fucking
Mhm.
well, not a
Yeah.
counter, but a sexual 4 is the most aggressive type, and it's just like.
Yeah. And I think that's like the reason I don't do subtypes 2 or even counter types is because I work on a stacking system when it comes to instinct. So for me, I'm not just a social 7. I'm a social sexual 7. And that's gonna I'm actually the panel I told you about, that's
Mhm,
gonna highlight that a lot of how all of the social DOMs can differ based on their
mhm,
stacking. So I tried to mirror it where I have you as a social self-preservation 3, but then I also asked another girl who's a social sexual 3 to come,
mhm,
and we're going to see how they differ because of the stacking. So I'm a social sexual 7. I have a friend who's a social self-preservation 7 who's hopefully going to be there.
mhm,
Things like that. And yeah, so on a few more types, but it is interesting because when I see something like like a self-preservation social 4, I don't think is like the super stoic, like whatever the self-preservation chestnut version of 4 is.
mhm,
Maybe a self-preservation sexual 4 would be more likely to be that way, because they are so insular and they're not broadcasting much of anything because they lack the social.
mhm,
Um, so for me, the weirder types are more based on a stacking. Like the weirder ones for me to type are the ones who go contraflow. So you have social self-preservation, sexual social, and self-preservation sexual in terms of stacking.
mhm.
Uh, self-preservation sexual 6 versus a self-preservation social 6. The self-preservation sexual 6 is weird. They're harder to type. They look way less like the follow all the rules of the self-preservation social 6.
Mm.
So yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
interesting.
That's
But I
interesting.
think chestnut goes into stackings as well.
Not that I've seen. It just basically she gives you the 27.
Mm,
I don't know if I haven't seen anything with the
okay.
what you call it. I mean, she
I've read.
may stack them like socials SP, but like she's basically like looking for one, like
Okay.
one that you're more of. And the thing, I mean, it's interesting to me. I thought based off like some of the shit I had read, I thought maybe I was an 8, but then
Hmm.
everybody's like, "Yo, you're not an 8, you're a 3." And then they're like, "You're a
Yeah.
3 SP," and then some people say
Yeah.
you're a 3 SO, and you're a 3 SP, and I'm like, well, whatever. And like Naranjo kind of makes like 3 SOs look crazy. I read his shit and I'm like, yo, what the hell? Like, I mean, but it's like people have to. remember, like when young, and like most of these guys do it, they're doing it on patients that are clinically
Yeah.
ill, right?
Yeah.
They're dealing with like the worst of the worst. Like when Young was doing breaking down his types, he was doing that on his patients, and these people are like the worst people in society. Well, not the worst. It's just like the most depraved people in society. Like they're more one sided than other people would be, right? Let's
Mhm.
say if you're looking at Young from extrovert intuition, he's going to be looking at an extroverted intuition person who's 100% chasing any with no SI, barely
Mhm.
any TI. That's what
Mhm.
he's going to be talking about in his clinical
Yeah.
work, and that's how
Yeah.
uh, presents. And people need to understand that normal people aren't like that.
Yeah.
Normal
Yeah.
people, you got to make it, for the normal everyday person. But
That's true. That's true about Naranjo. Yeah. I hate the way Naranjo describes the three. I feel like I detest him for that. Just yeah, the way I view the three is very different than Naranjo. But yeah, it's true. I mean, like just the instincts alone are very interesting. I have somebody who I know really well on my server who to me is the most and he types this way as well. He's the most obvious sexual social instinct stacking. And it's so cool just to see his instincts play out as
mm,
their own organism. His type, though, however, harder to decode because of his instinct stacking.
it is.
But yeah, but yeah, it
Mm.
is. I think they're very interesting on their own.
Well, guys, you guys can follow her on her Discord, Enya Cunt. People always ask me like, why is that name that? People always ask me that.
because I just every step of the way I have not
Every step of the way.
tailored this to market myself or for it to
Mhm,
blow up, but then I keep getting more and more people, and so because Ania Cut was something funny we came up with as a community,
mhm.
it's like not that marketable. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if I'll change it or not. So
Well, guys, I will be dropping a link to her Discord, and
mhm.
also she does charge for her Enneagram, which I think is definitely worth it. I think it's $15 for her just regular sessions, and if you want her comprehensive breakdown, and I'll be going over my comprehensive breakdown from her in one of my videos in the future. That's $75 right now.
Yes. Did you get
So
yours? Did you get a chance to look over it?
yeah, I did look over it. It was
Okay,
pretty
good.
interesting.
Yeah, awesome.
And she does a pretty good job on those. It takes it's a lot. It's a lot. She even goes over the notes, your stacking, your resources, everything you said and why you said it and why she attached it to it. It's worth the money. So you probably want to get in that before she increases the price, because I can see that as something that will increase over time, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I'll go over $95 ever. So I might increase it, but it'll only be by $20 eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
are you going to be starting a YouTube anytime soon, or
I think I
just still school?
should. I honestly feel like if I just tried, like, like if I marketed myself even a little bit, I could actually weirdly make a living off of this, which is something I never expected. But that's
Mhm,
kind of cool because I had like 8 sessions this last week and
mhm.
3 full reports. And so yeah, if I just marketed myself, upped my money by like $20, I could actually do this for a living, which is so weird. So
Well, thank you for coming on. And guys, we'll be having her on more. So
yeah,
check out her Discord. It's a great place to be. I love her resources.
yeah.
Let her do all the resource work for you. Let the ENTP do all the research work for you.
There we go.
Well, thank you. And take it easy.
All
Bye.
right. Bye. Thanks.